So, what if a simple fairy tale about three brothers and their coats was actually one of the most savage takedowns of religion and culture ever written? Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today with Jonathan Swift's brilliant, complicated masterpiece, A Tale of a Tub. Let's get into it.
This right here, this is the core of everything Swift does. For him, irony wasn't just for telling jokes. Oh no, it was a weapon for finding the truth, a tool to slice right through hypocrisy and show you what was really going on underneath it all.
All right, so when you first pick this book up, it seems pretty simple. It's presented as this little fairy tale, a story about three brothers and a very specific inheritance they get from their father.
The setup sounds straightforward enough. A father passes away and leaves his three sons, Peter, Martin, and Jack, a will and three identical coats. There's just one single rule. Do not, under any circumstances, change these coats. But you know how it is. Fashion changes, and pretty soon the brothers are adding all sorts of decorations, which of course leads to massive arguments. Sounds like a basic family squabble, right?
Well, you'd be wrong. This whole story is actually a brilliant disguise. Swift wasn't really writing about coats and family drama. He was taking aim at something much, much bigger. And his first, and probably biggest target, was religion. This entire fairy tale is a deeply layered allegory for the whole history of Christianity and its biggest fights. Let's start peeling back those layers.
Okay, first we got to get one key term down: religious allegory. It's basically a story where everything is a symbol. The characters, the items, what happens, it all stands for much bigger, real-world ideas about faith and religious history. So here's the decoder ring for the story. That father's will, the original set of instructions, that's the Bible. And the simple, identical coats he gives them, that represents the original, pure Christian faith. And all those flashy decorations the brothers start adding, well, those are all the ceremonies, rituals, and so-called reforms that different churches added over the centuries.
And the brothers themselves, they're the main players in this drama. You've got Peter, think Saint Peter, who represents Roman Catholicism, which Swift paints as arrogant and obsessed with excessive rituals. Then there's Jack, who stands in for the radical Protestants, portrayed as fanatics who are totally destructive in their extreme piety. And smack in the middle is Martin, who represents Swift's own Anglican church, just trying to find a reasonable, middle-of-the-road path.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? Swift is attacking the extremes on both sides. He's totally rejecting the over-the-top ceremonies of Catholicism and the wild fanaticism of the dissenters. At the end of the day, he's making a powerful argument for a balanced, moderate, and reasoned approach to faith.
But believe me, Swift was just getting warmed up. You see, the story of the brothers is constantly being interrupted by these other chapters called digressions. So you have to ask, what else was he attacking in these sections that seem so random?
It turns out his second major target was the entire literary scene of his time, and that includes writers, critics, and even the people who were reading his book.
In these digressions, absolutely nobody is safe. He goes after everyone. Vain modern authors who think they're geniuses, arrogant critics who never create anything themselves, hack writers just churning out junk for cash, scholars who are obsessed with tiny, pointless details, and even his own readers, who he called out for being impatient and shallow.
And he did not hold back. When it came to critics, he compared them to insects and parasites, just feeding on other people's work. It's a pretty brutal image, and it perfectly captures just how much contempt he had for them.
This all tapped into this huge debate that was happening back then, the ancients versus the moderns. Swift was 100% team ancients. He championed the classical writers who he felt stood for order, real wisdom, and substance. He saw the modern writers of his own time as chaotic, superficial, and vain, way more interested in showing off with footnotes than in saying anything meaningful.
And here's where it gets really, really clever, almost meta. He actually turns the satire on his own audience. He's making fun of his readers for being impatient, for just wanting constant entertainment, and for skipping the boring parts. He is literally mocking you as you read his book. So how did he pull all of this off? What was it about his actual writing style that made his satire so incredibly powerful and, well, timeless?
His power really boils down to four key things. First, he sounded sincere, using plain, direct language that just feels honest. Second, you could feel this real passion behind the jokes. He wasn't just being witty, he was fighting for something. Third, his irony was always sharp and controlled, never just for show. And finally, his writing was incredibly clear and tight.
Not a single wasted word, just powerful sentences that land like a punch.
And that's really the secret sauce. It wasn't just about being clever. You could feel that marked sincerity and concentrated passion simmering just below the surface, and that's what gave his satire such incredible force.
And all of this leaves us with one final thought. Swift was writing about religious fanatics, vain artists, arrogant commentators, and a public that wanted entertainment more than substance. In our own age of social media, misinformation, and performative outrage, you kind of have to ask, is his sharp, clarifying satire more relevant today than it ever was?